Hey, it's Chris from Hefty Fabworks. We're just going to do an install video today on the Tacoma Banshee low profile bumper. We wanted to go through and show you guys from start to finish. This truck just came in for the install. We do have our parts down here. We have pre-powder coated these since we're doing the install here. So you will have to get these parts coated. We are also doing a Warn BR10S Evo winch install at the same time. But you can see here we do have our steel substructure that's going to go on, as well as our aluminum shell, this one with the low hoop option. And again, we do have the Warn BR winch. We have already clocked the winch so that the control lever is facing the front of the vehicle. That way we can do the operation of the winch. But we'll show you how to mount everything in and go from there. All right, so we're going to start off by marking where our cut lines are on the truck before we take anything apart here. So we're going to start off on this back lip right up in the top here. You can see this truck's a little bit dirty. We're not really worried about cleaning it up yet, but what we're going to do is we're going to take some 1-inch green masking tape. So this is frog tape that you can get from Home Depot or even Walmart. Walmart sells the 1-inch. We like this type of tape because it is flexible. It's not going to rip when you bend it around a corner. So we're going to start back up in here, and I'm going to go just about halfway over the black lip here. So we're leaving just about a 1/2 inch of the painted bumper color exposed here. So you see we're just overlapping there just enough. Get just a little bit on there. All right, so we got the top edge taped off here. Now we're gonna go right where this seam is, or where the joint is there, and we're gonna actually use the 1-inch tape as our cut line. So we're gonna go right up inside that inside corner. And then same thing on the front side here. We go right inside that corner there as well. And our bumper shell will actually cover up your cut line, but we wanna make sure that we get enough cut off of there so that we can have a good proper cut line without it causing interference with the bumper. On this lower section here, what we're going to do is we're going to be coming right in here on this cut, but we're actually going to go ahead and pull this up until it goes down to meeting this corner on the inside. So we're going to pull it up kind of like this. So it's actually going to fade into essentially nothing there. All right, so our cut lines then are going to be right along the green edge of the tape here. So we're going to follow this up and around, and that's where we're going to end up cutting. So what we're going to do is we're going to add some additional blue tape just to protect all the painted surfaces before we start cutting. But we'll get the rest of this taped out and show you guys what we've got when we're done. All right, so now we've got the bumper taped off. So we just put the blue tape on there just to protect the paint finish for when we're cutting, just to make sure that we don't run into any issues. We are not going to remove the factory bumper to do this installation. On the Tacomas, the clips in the fender flares and some of the other areas are more difficult to get off without damaging. So we're going to do this install leaving the bumper in place. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to actually get in here. This is all getting cut out, but we're going to remove just the black plastic cover here. And it just takes a little bit to kind of pry it out. And you are probably going to break the clips on this as you pull them off. There we go. And all we're doing is just removing that piece there. So that gives us exposure on the inside here. So we do have our crash bar and everything in here. Same thing here. This can just kind of pry off and pull out. There are some clips in here. You can just get it kind of pulled out of the way. And this is going to give us our exposure for what we need to do to get everything clear for the install. All right, so that's the beginning of the removal here. We're going to get back up underneath here, and there are some 10mm screws we're going to pull out. Then we're going to get in here and we're going to go ahead and pull the crash bar off and go ahead and get this ready for doing our cut. pull those little side pieces, yep. Okay, now we can pull the front crash bar. You do have to pull those two outer 10mm screws on the underside, on the little bracket, yeah. So now that should be able to come out. It's a little tricky. So it's a little blue press clip, you can push that out. It's not easy to get, period. Got the crash bar out. So what we were running into is on the bottom plastic underneath, there's a little clip that goes right into this brace here. So it's just a matter of getting your hand back up in there, clipping that and being able to pop it out of the hole here. We do want to retain that clip. We're just not worried about this. Once you go to pull it out, to get it out easier, you can just actually reach up and bend this bracket over, and that'll give you the space you need to actually go ahead and pull this crash bar out. Now the next thing we're going to do is right down in here. Now we have the additional extensions for your front crash bar, so we're going to remove these as well. This is the next step to be able to make the space that we need, and then from there we'll keep working and we'll get to the cut and start mounting things up. All right, underneath the frame here, we've also removed the frame extensions, which is just a single bolt in the bottom. We are going to use that bolt hole for our mounts, but we removed that extension as well as the factory tow hook on the passenger side of the vehicle. We've removed that as well. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to do our cut. One thing that we want to watch is when we're cutting that line, when we come back around on the underside, we're actually only cutting off the painted portion of the bumper. So we're going to come right under here. We are not cutting back any of the splash shields underneath, just the painted portion of the bumper. We're actually going to go ahead and retain all of the splash shield underneath. So just be careful when you're doing your cut not to overcut your splash shield. In addition, that little clip that we pulled out, we are going to screw that back in right here. You can see we've pulled it out. We're going to put that screw right back into place. That's going to keep your plastic sides all tied back in like they're supposed to be, so that our bumper shell will keep everything nice and in place. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to start our cut. I prefer using a jigsaw with a fine tooth metal blade on it. I like this tool for cutting the plastic just because it is a little bit bigger, it's easier to handle. Any little movement you make in your hand isn't going to necessarily translate to the blade, so you can keep a nice straight cut. Again, on this cut, it's covered up, so unlike some of our full bumpers where you're going to see an exposed cut, this one gets covered up pretty good. So it's not as critical as far as the cut being absolutely perfect, but we want to always try to do our best and get it as straight as we can. So we're just going to come in here. And all we're doing is just kind of making our cut as we go around. You can do it in multiple pieces. These can be rounded, so I'm going to go back in, round that off, and then we can continue that cut on. And again, as we get underneath, we just want to make sure we're not cutting into the sub plastic here or the splash shield. So I'm just going to pull this back. And there we go. So we left that sub plaster, that splash shield in place. Again, we're going to screw that back in. I leave it loose while I'm doing the cut so I can kind of push it out of the way. But this is where our cut line is going to be. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to continue to follow the green line up and around. All right, so at this point we've gone ahead and we've removed all of the plastic that we don't need, or all the stuff that's in the way. We're gonna go ahead and clean up those cuts a little bit. You can see I wasn't too concerned about being absolutely 100% perfect on here. but we do want to keep it nice and clean. That new bumper shell, like I said, is going to overlap, so there may be some additional trimming you're going to do in here just to make it fit perfect, but we're going to go ahead. This is a good starting point. We'll get it cleaned up and get ready to start doing the install. All right, so the next thing we're going to do on this to prep this for the install is this little the air dam or air directional piece. We're actually going to go ahead and we're going to trim this back. So we want to leave this clip in place, so we're just going to go ahead and score across here, cut that, and it should snap out pretty easy. We're going to do that on both sides so that we have room for that new bumper to go ahead and fit in here. So we're just going to use a utility knife. Again, we can get back up in here, and if you use a sharp one, it'll actually cut through pretty easy. And again, just trying to make sure that we get that just out of the way. All right, just like that on both sides.
Good.
Yep, go ahead. There we go.
There we go.
So now we're going to go ahead and bolt the bumper in using the, it sits on the studs, the factory studs. We're going to reuse the factory nuts that came off the crash bar to hold this in and get her in place. We've gone ahead and pushed the control box for the winch up into behind the grill with the winch mounted here. Yeah, we'll relocate that and get that secured here once we're done putting this all in. And you can see that with the design of this, it's actually really easy to get your hands in there and get things bolted in properly. Underneath the frame where we took the frame extensions off, Dakota here is getting ready to put in there are bolts that mount up inside the frame system here. All of this hardware will come with the bumper. So he's going to go ahead and stick the bolt up with the flat washer up and through the bottom of the frame, and then add the flat washer, lock washer, and the nut on there, and that'll secure us to the bottom. That allows us to secure this bumper and have it nice and solid for when you are doing winch pulls or any recovery points on it. It does tie it back into that lower portion of the frame and eliminates any twisting on the frame off of just the upper mount, so it does give us a lot more structure on the mounting system. All right, so we've gone ahead and we've centered the bumper onto the frame, making sure that everything's lined up. There is adjustment left and right in our mounting system, so we just wanted to make sure that it is actually centered on the truck. Sometimes the bodies are off from the frame, so just make sure that you're watching, check your body lines here. Make sure if you don't have a winch on here, we've got good lines with the Warren emblems that we can actually go ahead and take a look at and go, okay, yeah, that's in line. But you can measure your 2 points here, or you know, figure out a couple different points, find your center point, and you can actually line it up with these center points in the grill. That's going to give you a good, easy way to align this thing, make sure it's pretty centered to the body. Because it is a body on frame, the body can be shifted left or right of the center of the frame of the truck. So we do want to just try to go off the body as much as possible. So now we're just going to go ahead and we're going to go crank everything down, tighten it all down. All right, so at this point we've got the steel structure, the winch structure actually in place. We have gone through, we've torqued all the bolts and tightened them all down so they're nice and snug. You can see here that the winch is installed. Obviously we installed that before putting it into the truck. The winch mounting bolts are right underneath here. You can see how easy access those are, as well as a nice open area for drainage for the winch or anything that gets up in there. So snow, water, ice, anything, it's just going to drain right out. We've got access here for our clutch engagement lever. It's just going to move up and back. That access hole will be in the front face of the bumper. So the next step here is going to be actually for us to go ahead and get the control box on the winch mounted and in place. And then once all of that's done, we'll go ahead and we'll put the shell on it, and that'll finish up the install. All right, so we've gone ahead and installed our winch relocation bracket here along that lower core support. We're going to go ahead next and install the control box onto that bracket, and then go ahead and run the wires for the winch, and then we'll get to the front install on the front fascia for the bumper. All right, so now we've got the winch control box installed. We wired the winch up. We've gone ahead and sucked the line into the winch, So we've got everything basically set up, operational and functional now. So now we're going to go ahead, we're going to add our cover shell to this. So we're going to use the supplied stainless steel bolts and washers that we have included with the kit. This is just going to go ahead and slide right over the D-rings and into place, and with the winch you got to kind of play with the hook a little bit. And so all we're going to do is go around here and just start adding in the stainless bolts. So we're going to tighten these down with a 3/16 Allen head or Allen wrench. I'm just going to pull them down, kind of snug them up at first. Now because these are stainless, we don't want to over torque them, so we just want to run them in and snug them up, and then we'll get the shell on, and that'll complete the install. So we've now completed the install on the Banshee bumper for the Toyota Tacoma, for the 3rd gen Tacoma. As you can see, it's a clean install. It's not a super difficult install to do. Just takes a little bit of time to get it in and dialed in. The lines that you'll see on here, as far as the way it cuts in around the factory bumper, really is a clean cut. Still leaves all the factory look to it, but definitely gives you that solid recovery on the front, the good solid winch mount. And again, the aluminum shell just keeps the weight down, but gives you a really clean factory type appearance. Definitely give us a call if you're looking for any other products. We've got a full array of products for your Tacomas and Toyota products, and we can get you out there.